Hello there and welcome back to the High Elves Abridged, where last time we fought a whole bunch of battles against the remnants of Angmar and took 3 territories. Well, one of them was from rebels actually. Then we started defending against their counter-attack. We had a not all that good defense of Mount Graham, but it worked out in the end. And now they've just got troops all over the area and we need to do something about it. We've got some reinforcements coming up from the south who are going to be primarily responsible for this. And we're going straight into a battle because one group arrives here at Morfathas and it's big enough to engage the enemy's besieging force, but they do also have some actual units in here. Since everyone's gone past the barracks event now, we're going to be facing some stronger enemies, but at some point we'll be able to deploy stronger troops ourselves as a result. We're going to start this one off with some skirmishing. The enemy had a couple of archer units there and they looked willing to just stand still. So I thought, let's try out the old Cantabrian circle. We've seen the goblins doing this a few times, so let's try their tricks. For some reason it only really worked on one of my 2 horse archer units, but the idea there is that the circle means the enemy will usually miss when firing at you, so you can just make them waste their ammo. As for our return fire, it's not doing all that much because now that they have these better troops, their defense stats are high enough that they can tank the arrows quite well, so we're kind of just going to run out of ammo before we do any substantial damage. Still trying to get that Cantabrian circle to work. I'm turning it off and on, but it just straight up doesn't work. Maybe it's because I'm giving another order right after that's messing it up. Looks like the weakest of their units has charged out on its own to engage our swordsmen, and that's perfect because now we can surround the weak unit. At the back I've got the cav ready to try and get in amongst those groups of archers and take them out. And now at last the glorious double Cantabrian circle has been achieved, and they're just going to snipe away at the enemy's pikes who are gradually walking towards them. Here's the attack on the archers. One of their archers is one of the next tier of units, so they're quite strong in melee, meaning they don't die all that easily. Plus, as we've seen before, our melee cav don't have the best charge or the best anything really. So it doesn't do all that much is what I'm trying to say, but we'll try again. As for the Cantabrian circles, we can keep circling away, we can leave them on skirmish and those pikes will just never catch them. So effectively we're taking the pikes out of the battle, which is perfect. And as you saw, we've got our swordmasters surrounding their infantry fighting us on our little front line. So now we just have to hope we can grind them down to death. This is the weaker of their units, as I said, and fighting on all sides, they're probably going to rout, so that's fine. Once that's all dealt with, here we are back again fighting the archers for the umpteenth time, and we finally do get to the point when we defeat them. It took a while and we did lose some of our cav doing this, but that's to be expected against these heavier variants of the archers. Now the enemy's good melee unit is starting to engage, luckily engaging after the other melee troops are already gone, so we have enough troops to surround them even with our own tiny melee contingent in the army. And yes, their pikes are walking off into the distance. We're running out of arrows and, as mentioned, didn't really do any damage with them. But taking the pikes out of the fight is damage enough. Looks like our swordmasters kind of got their charge to work. Maybe a couple of guys applied the charge bonus there. Seems to almost never work in my experience, or even never work perhaps. But yes, we do surround and pound them, and eventually we rout that unit after a grinding fight. And the pikes just weren't involved at all, and at the same time our cav finished off the last of the enemy archers, meaning the battle comes down to a fight with their pikes, their halberdiers I should say. They were intent on going for our swordmasters and started marching towards them while ignoring the fact I was chipping away at them from behind with other troops. So this was more effective than expected actually. We just kept rear attacking them as they gradually walked away. Eventually I decided to stop running and just engage them from both sides properly, and with everything by the looks of things we're just charging everything into this block. It seems the halberdiers are quite weak from behind while in their special formation. I'm sure it actually changes their stats as well because our Lindar guards, who aren't all that good, we're killing them really easily. Anyway, they rout and we've already hit the number we need to kill their army, so that's the end of the battle. Lost about 100 troops, not too bad. Most of the troops will stay behind here at Morfathas to add to the defences, but some are going to go and supplement our Mount Graham force, our main force quote unquote, which is now pretty much dead. The issue is there is a more substantial Angmar force nearby, and it looks like they're going to threaten that castle. In response, I'm going to send the only unit that can reinforce back there to slightly enhance the garrison. Still not sure that's enough. We've got more stuff on the way, but with our long recruitment times and the fact we have to move over there, it's going to be a few turns before we can really do anything. One thing we can do this turn is to attack Busradum. Well, I thought we could attack actually. It looks like on the map that there was no wall, but there is a wall, it just has a unique model. So we need to besiege it instead of attacking it. Inside, not that much, so my little force should be able to take that place eventually. Now at the start of the next turn we've got news of a siege. Not the siege I expected actually. They've brought a new army down to besiege Mount Graham again. This is a bit worrying because we don't have that much stuff left on the inside. The units we have there are all in pretty bad condition. I do have these reinforcements moving up, but the siege of course stops us from getting in, so now we just stand awkwardly outside the back gate because the enemy have the front gate under siege. Now I had to decide, do we want to take a siege defense, because we saw last time the siege map is nothing special, so it doesn't really give us much of an advantage to defend the interior of Mount Graham. So I started thinking, should we sally instead? Before I came back to that decision, I was looking around and noted that their main force near our castle is moving north. That's inconvenient because they're either moving towards Mount Graham or they're going to go for Morfathas, which would be probably easy for them to take at this point. We do have a couple of extra units available, so they'll start moving up, but again that's going to take a while to come to anything. I tried to get a ceasefire with Angmar, thinking this is probably a good time to end the war and let us have some time to make a new army effectively. But they didn't want a ceasefire, throwing some money at them didn't work either. After that I thought, well, we're gonna have to just do this. I had no faith in waiting at Mount Graham, both because the siege defense might not be very good, and because their other army might come over, or other troops that we haven't seen yet could come over. So I figured our best bet is to try and fight outside and go for a sally, and go for things like a general snipe and some surround and pound action. They are packed with low quality units right here, so plenty of chances to rout things. Before the battle starts though, I waited a pretty long time for our reinforcements, who were at the south end of the map, to walk all the way around the mountain to be on the enemy's flank. You can see them there on the mini-map. Then once I was ready, I moved out of the town. The enemy were just standing outside. I have this little choke point in front of the gate where we can stand in this narrow gorge, which is perfect since the enemy have numbers. We can force them to attack our front uphill. Figured this might actually allow us to just trade really efficiently with them. I also thought I'd be firing arrows down upon them. We are in range, but there are some issues here. There's like a little raised bit of grass just in front of us that blocks all of our line of sight towards the enemy from the ground level. So the shooting wasn't that effective actually. They were shooting back up at us with some skirmishers. That wasn't doing all that much. They also sent one unit to go and challenge my flanking force. Wasn't too worried about this because they almost certainly can't bring down both the archers and the horse archers after being shot by them, of course. They turn around and start moving away, so that's going to help out. They're losing their shield bonus. We're not exactly mowing them down, but we're picking up some free kills, so that's all good. But then something strange started to happen. Back at the front, after the enemy looked like they were going to run up to stop us from shooting at them, they decided to start walking back down. At first I thought, well, fine, because while you stroll away, we can shoot arrows into the back of you, and we do manage to get a few volleys in and grab some kills. But this just kept happening. They walked all the way off from the gate. I thought they might be going for just our reinforcements, but they started walking past them as well. It dawned on me that they might be walking to the other side of the mountain to try and go in through the other gate. So now we go on a wild camera adventure across the map to go and find the other gate. Because I thought, is it like open, and that's why they've suddenly started moving towards it. It is closed and they're not taking their rams, so I thought, is that going to be like a problem for us? They'll just walk over there and then the time limit will run out basically. But then I remembered they do have a couple of ballistas and they can destroy gates, so that must be what the AI is thinking here. They decided to switch to the other gate and they're just going to take the ballista over to blow it up. That I guess, or they might be doing the thing where the AI tries to get onto the highest ground on the map and they've decided the highest ground is in like the bottom left hand corner, so they're walking off there. But from the way they're curving around the mountain, it kind of looks like they're trying to get to the other gate. Well, whatever's going on, I sent my horse archers to go and harass the ballista to try and take them out before anything goes wrong. Other troops you might have spotted just there have moved out to attack their siege equipment. Because it's been abandoned, we can destroy the siege equipment, which will mean whatever happens in this sally, they'll have to at least spend another turn before they're allowed to attack. If we can take out all the rams, the other stuff doesn't matter because they can't actually use it. So while I'm making this attack on the ballista, I'm looking to see if the enemy are turning back to try and stop me. we do manage to finish off the ballista crew here, and some of the enemy come back. We kind of split their attention. Some units keep marching towards the other side of the map, and others start coming back towards our original position. So before they arrive, we want to quickly finish off the stuff here. Here's me taking out the second of the 2 rams. The rams kind of do damage when they get destroyed though. You can see we lose a whole bunch of guys. There's a bit of delay between the ram collapsing and the damage being applied, so it didn't actually crush the guys who were underneath it when it fell. Anyway, I thought I could take out the tower and the ladders as well, just for fun, to force them to waste points rebuilding them afterwards perhaps. But I seem to remember trying this in a previous Medieval 2 campaign and finding you can't do it, and this is no exception. The ladders can be targeted, as can the siege tower, but it just doesn't do anything, unlike with the ram where it does destroy it. The destruction of the rams seemed to halt the enemy's return to their original position. Everything that had come back to near where my horse archers are here then started trying to walk away. In reaction, I thought let's just start rear attacking them as they walk off. Figured we might as well try and pick up some kills here, so I'm just going to cycle charge the odd unit and try to get them to rout. The issue we're going to face at this stage in this battle is the time limit. We've used more than half the time to get to this point, and we haven't really engaged the enemy very much. And because so many of them have spent a lot of that time walking to the other side of this massive map. So it's getting to the point when it's going to be difficult to actually engage the enemy before the battle automatically ends, especially because I'm not being all that aggressive. I was still holding on to the hope that they would come back to my nice gorge hill position over here. It's kind of looking like they're not going to, so this was the point when I started thinking, right, we're going to move out around the mountain, but because I'm going to be slower than them, since I want to move in formation ready to fight, we're not going to be catching up to them with anything except our horse archers. They have attracted some enemy attention, so we can fight a couple of units over here. But yes, we haven't got the entire enemy army to come back, and that means we technically can't win the battle unless we can also get fights going on the other side of the map quite soon. Helping me out was the fact that my horse archer harassment caused quite a lot, the majority in fact, of the units going around the mountain to turn around. So now there's going to be a big line of units coming back to my position. I've already pulled the horse archers back behind it to draw stuff in. However, the AI weren't massively aggressive. Many of the units came and just stood in front of us. That does suit us because we have archers, and here's some more classic footage of Elrond versus the Warg skirmishers. They have a couple of units that are nearly dead already, so we can easily just gun them down to clear them out of the way. Then we do need to get a move on, so I started advancing into the enemy. Once they got close, they seemed a bit more willing to fight for like 2 seconds, and then once they engaged, they rout. So that's what we like to see. We just need to go and attack all these single units to make them go away, and try to do it as fast as possible. So we start moving up. Here's the next group, just some orc fighters. They rout once the horse archers rear attack them. This is going to be plenty of free captives, but what I wasn't sure about was if the battle ends with the time limit running out, do we technically lose? Do we lose the settlement, or do we lose the captives? I wasn't sure what was going to happen. So all the more reason to race on. The next group we attack is a couple of already nearly dead units, but also their general, probably the best unit in their army, almost definitely in fact. With that general, we fight him from the front with some stuff, and then Elrond comes in to shoot in from behind. Not sure how effective this is. It's another armoured unit that doesn't die massively to arrow attacks, but over time it wears them down, and I guess the frontal attack does as well, and we do kill the general in there. So now whatever happens, we've killed the rams and their commander. Their army's looking a bit weak, and now was the time for me to realise something I should have realised a long time ago. That is that I can just send my units through the mountain to the other gate in order to have a shortcut to where the enemy appear to be setting up on the other side, now with just a couple of units. If I'd done this ages ago, I think this battle wouldn't have been so much of a problem for me, but I didn't think of that until it was way too late. At least we can actually now do it, so some units will race through the mountain to attack other stuff. The slower infantry units are going to engage the last guy who was still coming back around the mountain. Just these hillmen, they routed soon after engaging us. And then my horse archers burst out of the other gate in the mountain and try to attack what's out here. There's no visible time left, but all we need to do is touch the enemy. They just rout on contact at this point. So I figured we were fine, we can drive them off and actually still win. However, the time limit runs out just as I was charging at the last few guys. So that was very close. With one more minute, I think that would have technically been a win. Instead it's a draw. Well, at least it's not a loss, and it does appear that all the captives we took just disappear. They are presumably executed. So the enemy army is now in terrible condition after losing all that routed stuff. However, they do seem to have their rams back. That doesn't seem to have worked, so maybe you have to win for the siege equipment destruction to work. Not quite sure, maybe it just doesn't really work with sallies. Anyway, so that's the end of that for this turn, but we've got another bit of business to attend to. We need to take out this experienced, upgraded trash over here at this little goblin rebel settlement we're attacking. This is one of those fights where the enemy are just going to sit on their capture point, so we're going to have to kill them the hard way, but we do have a new toy to play with, these gold armoured heavy cav. There was also a unit of archers off to the side, so we can plough right into them and see how it does. It's not as good as the Sildar Lancers from Empire Total War. We don't just go through their unit and out the other side. But it's going to kill them a little bit. As for our plan, well, we're going to have to just grind the enemy down in this fight since they have the capture point. We'll just send the swords in to fight their gobbos and see what happens. We can use our archers to start moving around once the enemy are committed and get some flanking shots. That will speed things up quite a lot. I was also trying to use my general here to surround that main blob that's actually just off the capture point now, so they were routable. But this didn't work at all because the mountain orc hunters that were in that group turned out to fight my general, so we don't get a rear attack, we've just got 2 frontal attacks, and this attack isn't that good for us because these orc hunters, as a two-handed axe unit, almost certainly have armor-piercing damage of some kind, or they ignore your defense to some extent because our guys with their something or other lords unit, who have extremely high melee defense, just die super fast. So I had to get out of that fight and basically draw the orc hunters into fighting some archers in melee instead so that their bonus won't apply. Here's me trying to charge the back of these goblin infantry. Didn't work quite as well as I thought, but basically this group is off the capture point, so we can attack them from multiple sides, rout them and take them out a bit. And you can see the main blob is being outflanked by our archers, and that main blob gets cut down to size pretty fast. We capture the town, but it's such a long countdown that we might as well try and kill everything else. Since we are taking casualties in this other fight, we've lost most of the unit of archers I was using as a distraction. The enemy general, their goblin bodyguard, is in there as well, and they're quite a decent unit compared to our archers in melee at least. They're probably about on par with our swords. So we move in to try and grind them down, did a bit of archery as well to thin them out, and eventually we get to the point when we have killed their general. We almost lost our own general in the process, and we did lose a load of troops. It was more difficult than I thought, but I guess it doesn't matter too much out here in the middle of nowhere. So we've captured this random place, and the value of this will come about once we build the mines. The mines here are worth way more than mines elsewhere. So by upgrading this place with mines, we'll make some money. Not that we particularly need to do that, but it's always a good idea, I suppose, to have more money, and it's nice to have more territory. Now back over to the east. What I thought would be either the enemy disengaging from Mount Graham or a really easy siege defense turns into a siege defense with the enemy having a slight advantage because they just reinforce with a bunch of their good tier units. So now we still have to defend Mount Graham despite me trying to avoid it. This time I'm going to play things a bit differently. I thought I'll defend the raised area in the middle rather than the approach to the mountain interior, since we can use the ramps on either side to have a height advantage, and archers along the top section can't be reached, so they can shoot down at the enemy coming in. This was better than I thought, actually. Not just because our height advantage probably makes our archers more powerful, still not sure about that, but the enemy rushed in with their general. Their general only had like 10 guys left after the previous fight, their captain I should say, and the archers killed him before he reached the front lines. So that's going to make the rest of this fight a fair bit easier. Some enemy archers set up to duel with our archers. It kind of looks like their arrows are just hitting the side of the wall there. But also our guys are recoiling. I'm not quite sure, but maybe the arrows are going through. I seem to remember fighting in the Minas Tirith map before. Lots of parts of walls are actually passable to arrows and things like that. There's weird stuff going on. So you can never know. Anyway, the enemy's main block starts making their way up and around this ramp, going just for one ramp, which is handy because we can focus all of our stuff there. And as we see, the moment I hit that leading unit with melee stuff, they just turn back and rout. So I'm guessing this is the effect of the captain being dead. Much more effective than I thought. I've already got some horse archers in the enemy's path of retreat, hoping to catch some routing stuff. So I go for that big unit that just routed, but annoyingly they unrouted by the time our cav got into melee with them. Because of that, we're not going to grind that one out, since I'm sure they're decent enough to take down our horse archers. But the fact that they're already shaken fighting them means we can probably rout them with something else. Overall, this fight's looking pretty good. We've got a few things that are about to be surrounded on the ramp. Some other enemies are just kind of walking off. Those thralls seem to be going down that passage off to the east end of the map. Not sure what the point of that was, but we hit them with some arrows and eventually tempted them back over to fight to take them out. Here we are a bit later. They had one reserve unit of orcs that came down to join the fight at this stage. But it's a bit too late. We're going to come in and surround them with all of our tiny little scraps of horse archers, and stuff starts to rout away from the battle. So yes, fighting here at the ramps was pretty good. I think the only other strategy I would be interested in trying on this map is deploying out of the gate at the very beginning to actually get that gorge choke point I was going for in the Sally battle. That certainly would have been possible. But this was good. With all the space inside, it's good to maneuver the cavalry around and get the rear attacks going. So we take them down with really minimal losses. That was a really good defense in the end. And that's that. Since they committed so much of their nearby forces to that fight, I immediately started thinking, can we move out and take their little castle over there? There's only 2 units inside right now, although there could be a garrison or something. And the other thing to consider is they do have a sizable army currently besieging Morfathas. So it would be nice to try and stop them from taking it back. So now we're going to make a multi-play. Firstly, some of our forces will go back to Morfathas, namely all of the mounted ones, because they can get into range of the enemy army this turn to help out. Then we'll take a detachment of the defenders left and go out towards that Litash place. We are gambling that they won't really have anything else to attack us, and you can see I was hesitant to make that gamble. We can see other enemy armies off to the west, and we don't have any intelligence on the northwest situation, but we're going to go for it anyway, basically. The problem we'll have sending such a small force is we can't make much siege equipment, and they do have a high level castle here. So I'm just going to put together some ladders and hopefully go for something cheeky where the fact the enemy have no troops will allow us to get in and bypass any siege defences. And then everything that has the movement points to do so moves out of the castle the enemy didn't attack to come and support the Morfathas situation. I did have a general in that castle, but that general had only just gone in this turn, so they didn't have the movement points to join. Unfortunately, we're going to go without a commander. The enemy doesn't have that weakness, but they do have low quality units. It's still their old style trash. And with all of our stuff put together, we have a slight advantage. We're going to be fighting from multiple directions, but we can work that out at the start of the next part.